Then when we, okay. Thank you for coming to the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. Just want to verify we have a quorum. So I've got Council Member Avila, Commissioner Geithner, Commissioner Gonzalez, Mayor Graham, Mayor Carpenter, and Pro Tem Mayor Gardine. That's 6. And who do we have online maybe? Do we have to have 6 to have a quorum?
Yes.
I'm here too, Mayor Newberry.
Oh,
We have the quorum.
did I count wrong? I forgot us too. Sorry.
Yeah. I think we count.
And I am Commissioner Holly Williams, and this is Council Member Randy Helms, so that makes 9. So we can call our meeting to order. Our first item of business is to approve the agenda. Does anyone have any questions? I will point out on the agenda, after our executive session, we have a modified agenda if you were able to print it out. After our executive session, we do have to discuss 2 items related to our executive session. So that's why those were after. All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay,
Friendly housekeeping reminder, just make sure to turn on your microphone and state your name for motions and speaking so that those in the room and online know who's saying what. Thank you.
okay, Councilmember Wayne Williams made the motion and Councilmember Randy Helms seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay, we do have public comment for items not on the agenda. We do have Larry Tobias wants to report to us about the Black Forest Corridor widening project.
I'm Larry Tobias, first vice chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the PPRTA. I'd just like to report Monday night of this week, they had a pre-information meeting for all the residents that were interested in the Black Forest widening project, which is one of our PPRTA major projects that we have on schedule. And at that particular meeting, and this project goes from Woodman Road up to Research Parkway. It is estimated that the project will run between now and approximately sometime middle to the latter part of 2024. So it is kind of going to be disruptive, to that area up there. However, I thought the meeting was very well run, and when I first got there, I know some of the people in Black Forest, and I'm looking at some of them and I'm going, okay, here's some of the people that are really going to give us a bad time. But Gail said that it was Lisa who was a facilitator. She did a very good job when we first started off the meeting. She was very upfront. She said, we know that we have people here who are against this project, have been against this project, but this project is now approved and is moving ahead. And that is what we are going to talk about tonight. And she reiterated that a couple times during the meeting. And be truthful with you, that was one of the milder meetings that I have gone to on road projects over the years. So it went very well. And there were a couple things that the people, they brought up a lot of questions. There were a couple things that people were, very happy about, I guess you might say, because on a lot of road projects, and I've talked to Gail today a bit about this, is that on this particular project between Woodman Road and Research Parkway, the only place that they are going to put streetlights are at the intersections. So you're going to have a road that's not going to be illuminated like from, night to day all the time. And a lot of people were happy about that. The other thing that I really, and this also was a very good point for the people that were in the audience, is that Mike Chavez and a couple of the people from Wildcat Construction, who is the contractor for the project. They stated that they are going to coordinate with CDOT, because this was one of the issues that, came up from several people. They're going to coordinate with CDOT so that we don't have major shutdowns at Research and Powers. At the same time, Wildcat is shutting down to do their work for some particular part of the project on Woodman Road. So there's going to be a lot of coordination between CDOT at Research and Powers and Wildcat and the city, and between those two projects to try to minimize as much disruption, that can happen with some of these projects. So overall, just as a quick ending to this, is that I thought the meeting went very well. The people asked good questions, and the staff from both the city and Wildcat, were able to provide, good answers for several of the questions they had. Oh, one other thing that came up a couple times is, were they going to put sound walls along, along the whole section where they're doing the road there on Black Forest? And the answer is no. The developers have put up privacy fence. It's not as high and as good as a sound wall, but as Mike said, it does still knock down a lot of that noise to where it's not coming into the neighborhood. So in my opinion, I thought the meeting went very well. The people that, were there got their answers, and this project starts Monday morning, the 18th of April. I'm not sure what time, but they will start on this project on Monday. Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. We appreciate the city for their efforts on that project too. Okay, are there any other members of the public, either in the room or online, who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Approval of the minutes from the March 9th, 2022 meeting.
This way, move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Lohino second.
Okay, a motion by Councilmember Williams, a second by Commissioner Gonzalez. Are there any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And oh, any opposed? Okay, I know it's not my voice. Okay. Our next item is item number 5, our Citizen Advisory Committee monthly report. And we'll again bring up Mr. Tobias.
Larry Tobias, first vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee. The committee met, and I just like to make one statement before I go into it. One of our board members at the end of the meeting said, "I can't believe what just happened. All the motions were approved unanimously. There was not one negative vote at this particular meeting." And he said, I can't remember the last time this happened, but I thought the committee worked very well that day, and we got through many different items and discussions. Start off with, there were no public comments. Beverly gave us our financial reports, which she will do today. There were 7 contracts presented to the CAC by the city of Colorado Springs. All 7 of those were approved unanimously. El Paso County had 2 contracts presented to the CAC, and again, they were both approved unanimously. City of Manitou Springs had 1 contract presented to the CAC, and that was also approved unanimously. PPRTA contracts for engineering cost estimates for capital projects for both City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County. They were both approved unanimously by the board. or CAC, I should say. We were given City of Colorado Springs Transit Service monthly update. That was information only. It is going to be interesting to see their presentation next month. They said that they're going to give us a video of what some of the new area where they're looking at developing the new transit building is going to be and what that will look like. So that'll be interesting to see, and hopefully the board here will also see it, right after our meeting the following week. City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County, and this also applies to any other city that may be associated with PPRTA, is that they came up with a way to have the state funding, if it's applied for by, say, the City of Colorado Springs or El Paso County, and it's awarded to them, that goes against their respective tabor limits. And so what they've come up with is a method to have the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments to be the entity that will actually put in for the grant. And they will be the individual or organization that receives the grant, and then they will distribute it to the respective organizations. We had a discussion about that. After the discussion, we asked for approval, and the board, the CAC committee voted unanimously for approval for this method to try to get additional funding through the state. City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report. That was presented, information only. Same with El Paso County. Property acquisition report, information only. Rick gave us a report on recent board actions. That was also information only. Revisions to the CAC bylaws. Approved a positive recommendation for the revised version as presented to the CAC. And of course, that was approved by the board, the previous meeting. The approved a positive recommendation for the timetable for the PPRTA 3 ballot measure, again unanimously. The PPRTA 2022 for 2021 projects annual report that was presented. We had a lot of positive comments from members of the board, and after we had some discussion, it was approved unanimously. And of course, you will see that also on your agenda today. Staff field review report, that was from Rick. That was just an information only. Agenda topics for next meeting, there were none, and there were no communications. Do I have any questions?
Go ahead, Rick.
Just to clarify, Larry, I think you said on the tabor limits item, I think you said PPACG was agreeing to be the grant applicant, so that's PPRTA.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I think we will be discussing that later in our agenda.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you very much to our
Thank you.
Citizens Advisory Committee. Yes. All right, we're moving it on to item number 6. Oh, we have to accept that. I need a motion to accept item number 5, the Citizens Advisory Committee monthly report.
Carrie Geithner, so moved.
Wayne Williams, second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is accepted. The next item is number 6, monthly financial reports. Beverly.
Good afternoon, board members. So in February, we received $10,727,000, which was $967,000 above budget, or 9.9%. On page 2, year-to-date, we're above last year, year-to-date by $1,935,000, thousand or 9.9%. Now, this is good news, but it's mostly related to inflation in the cost of things that I've been purchasing. And I think that construction inflation is higher than what we're seeing in our sales and use tax inflation. And it's just something to keep in mind that we don't have a lot of extra money that this report might indicate we have. Are there
Oh.
any questions?
Yeah. Are there any questions on the report? We do know our construction costs are going up, so. All right.
Okay, thank you.
There being no questions on the report, we'll file that report. Item number 7, the 2022 capital maintenance and public transportation contracts. Item number A, City of Colorado Springs. Gail.
Yes, Gail Sturdivant, City Engineer, Deputy Public Works Director with City Colorado Springs. Today, the city is going to be presenting 7 contracts for your consideration for approval. The first contract is for the 2022 bridge construction management and inspection services. The city would like to award a contract with Roxall Consulting Group in the amount of $468,161.92. This contract would really reflect a change of the bridge staff that we had that were currently employees for NB5, changing employers, to be quite honest with you, and the firm they're going to has some additional bridge expertise that the city is hoping to be able to take advantage of. The award of this contract is intended to be offset by the award previously allowed to MV5. So we wouldn't anticipate a net change in our overall programmatic management costs, but we would like to award this contract to NV5 for these services for these same individuals. Are there questions on that contract?
Okay, no questions.
right.
Continue on.
The second contract is for the Adamant Alley improvements. There is a vicinity map located with your memo, just to give you an idea with that this is located in the downtown Colorado Springs area. And the reason why we're bringing this to PPRTA, right now, there is no PPRTA dollars incorporated in this contract. And in fact, the work that the city and Colorado Springs utilities would be doing we're anticipating covering the cost, but as part of that, as utilities go through and do their subsurface work, and we have to come back and do paving, we do have some general fund monies identified for that. But if need be, we may need to incorporate some additional PPRTA maintenance funds in the future. So we wanted to make sure that we were letting both the PPRTA, CAC, and board know that this is a potential contract, and we have a change order that would come back in the future should it be determined to do so. We currently have that out for bid right now, and with that bid opening on April 19th. And there was also a presentation that was included in your package to kind of give you an idea of what's happening with this particular project. So again, with this project, we're going to be going through and doing a lot of sub-utility replacement that goes along that area. We're actually fixing a major drainage problem that occurs in this alley area. Once that's done, city would be coming through and doing maintenance paving, or basically reconstructing the pavement in that alley area. And then we're going to be turning it over to the downtown partnership and the Adamant Club for an art installation that they're going to be putting on the buildings and adjacent to this project. So it's really a collaborative project with multiple agencies. So that PowerPoint presentation that was included in your packet kind of gives you an idea of that vision, what that could look like in the future. If you're not aware, it is I believe it's the 100th anniversary of the climbing of Pikes Peak by the Adamant Club, and they're trying to have that installation done by December of 2022. Questions on that particular item?
Okay, I don't see any questions.
Okay.
The next item, please.
All right, so this third contract is for the Galley Road Bridge Replacement Project. We are in the final engineering phase, and they've realized there's some additional potential utility conflicts, so it does require some deeper subsurface investigation. We are anticipating or asking for approval for a contract of $40,181 for Stantec to complete that work, to continue to advance that project.
Any questions? Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Okay. Fourth contract is for The roadway and airfield marking paint maintenance contract. I will point out that is the name of the city's master contract is we buy paint supply materials. What we would be asking for is approval for $400,000 for PPRTA maintenance funds for Enos Flint Industries to get that paint material that would be applied to roadways that we were applying PPRTA maintenance funds for. The city did go through an RFP process. We had 2 respondents for that work. And Enos Flint Industries was the selected vendor for that particular work. Questions for that maintenance contract?
Okay, there's no questions. Let's go
All
into the last one, or the
All
next
right.
to last almost.
All right, the 5th contract is for long life payment marking services. The city went through an RFP process for that as well. We received 3 respondents. This contract is to provide materials, equipment, and labor to install striping materials as requested by the city's operation and maintenance staff. We're asking for the approval up for $400,000 for that particular maintenance contract. Questions for that?
No, go ahead.
All right. So this, there's going to be a walk-in, I believe, Rick, you just passed it out. So the city of Colorado Springs in conjunction with multiple departments, city's parks department, traffic engineering, and with the stormwater enterprise, we're working together to collaborate on a project to do the Sand Creek Trail crossing at the Hancock Expressway. This particular project is really being led by the Parks Department, but with some of the on-street improvements, there is a PPRTA element. The city is requesting approval of $100,000 from the on-street bike program to be incorporated in this contract. I will let you know, as we talked about cost increases earlier, again, the estimate for this that came from the Parks Department was a total of $776,442. They did receive 2 bids yesterday, and the low bid was the $1,172,238. And the second closest bid, the other bid, was actually just slightly higher than that. So both those bids were relatively close. But it does reflect a 73% increase over what they were expecting for the cost. The anticipated cost increase would be contracted and paid for out of TOPS funds. So we're still continuing to ask for just $100,000 for PPRTA. And you can see from the memo, there is $150,000 from City Stormwater Enterprise and the rest coming from TOPS. There is a vicinity map located in your packet too for this project. And other than the astounding cost increases, are there other questions for this project? All right.
No, let's do the last one.
All right. The city's 7th contract is for the Colorado Springs Intermodal Mobility Plan, also known as Connect COS. This contract adds additional time and work to support this effort. This really with this unique planning effort that we're going through, we've been asking them to do some additional work to provide input for potential PPRTA projects. But a lot of this time extension is really going to give us the opportunity to have some more in-person enhanced public engagement. And one of those things is actually going to be open houses included in each of our 6 council districts where folks can come in and learn more about the project specific to their area. And it also gives an extension of time service or services associated with the time piece of this, because we do not anticipate wrapping up that plan until at the earliest, the 4th quarter of 2022 at this point. With those additional services that request, we are asking for approval to award $174,730 to Felsberg, Holt, and Olivig for that additional work. Other questions for that item?
Okay, seeing no questions, are we ready to approve this item?
This fine, move approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Councilmember Williams.
Mayor Pro Tem Guardian, second it.
Okay, and second, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, none opposed. We do have, I see Mayor Newberry is on the line too, in her office online, so. Okay, our next item then would be the City of Manitou Springs. And I don't know, John, is that you or is it, there we go.
Wayne was teasing me earlier, so I guess you took the microphone away from me. Yeah, so this is basically,
Suppose Taking your employee, yeah.
well, okay. Oh, guilty is charged there, Wayne. Okay, so basically what City Manitou is asking for now is essentially a contract extension for work that we're doing at the west end of Manitou Springs. We call it our MAPS project. It's reconstruction of Manitou Avenue from Park Avenue to Serpentine Drive. And this is, frankly, it's dragged on somewhat. We've encountered any number of additional problems, things that we found underground that we didn't expect to be there. We had a lot of problems with utilities and so forth. So this is simply an extension of the supervisory contract with JR Engineering. And our city engineer is here. If Dole would like to address this in a little more detail, that's fine, but he could certainly, we will both try to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, are there any questions on this contract?
I guess not.
This Wayne, move approval.
John Graham, second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that contract passes. Our next item is 7C, the Pikes Peak RTA contracts for engineering cost estimates for PPRTA 3 capital projects, and that is Rick.
Good afternoon. This is a three-part requested motion. As the board's aware, the board has set aside over $1 million of admin funds for member governments to use that to through the PPRTA to hire consulting engineers to do cost estimates on upcoming PPRTA 3 capital projects. So the latest 3 items here are a contract with Olson Engineering for $91,640, a contract with Wilson and Company in the amount of $27,104, and a deductive or a reduction change order with Basis Partners in the very first contract that the board awarded to them in the amount of a minus $19,000 to $92.50. So that's the staff recommendation to the board for a 3-part motion.
Are there any questions? Okay, the meeting's not going to be this easy, I don't think. I will entertain a motion to approve item number 7C.
I move approval, John Graham.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mayor Graham, second by Councilwoman Avila. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that passes. Our next item then is under 8A, other reports, our City of Colorado Springs Transit Services monthly update. Craig.
Well, good afternoon, board members. I'm Craig Blewett, Transit Services Manager with the City of Colorado Springs. Our report is in your packet. Just like to hit a couple highlights. So for our local bus service, ridership in February this year is 4% lower than February of last year, 2021. I should note that though due to the bus driver shortage, there was 20% less bus service in terms of revenue service hour this year than last, and we're just 4% down in relationship to that. A little bit more on the from our fixed route driver shortage. You know, the driver shortage is due to the current labor market conditions. Our contractor has been adding drivers, and we've been restoring bus service over the past 3 years. Currently, all bus routes are operating, but some routes are still not operating at their full schedules. At this time, our contractor is 15 drivers short of where they need to be to provide full service. But 6 drivers are graduating from training this week and next week, and will be entering revenue service. And so we're closing the gap. We're making progress, and we'll continue to restore services as drivers are added. So we're 15 down now, but add 6, and so we're about 9 short next week. Our ADA paratransit service, Metro Mobility, we are up 17% for February of this year compared to February last year. And there has been no driver shortage for the ADA paratransit service. I do want to note, we have been able to provide every ride that's requested through the pandemic period and today. On taxi service, so that's an option for ADA customers to use a taxi. We did see an 11% increase compared to January. So we are trending up in ridership there as well. In the van pool program, a 17% increase in ridership compared to last year. So that that program, our van pool program, continues in a positive trend, but still significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels because commuting patterns have changed. Noted in there that our spring 2022 service changes, we've given you updates on this before. I can tell you we've completed our public process, 2-week public process, held virtual public meetings, and we have gone ahead and based on what we've heard, gone ahead and approved that, and so that service will begin at the end of the month. If you recall, we are adding service to Route 23, the northeast part of town, and we're also going to be operating regular service on 3 federal holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day, and 4th of July. So we're pleased that that service will be provided. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions that that you may have.
All right, do we have any questions? Go ahead, Councilwoman Avila.
Thanks for the report, Craig. And so when do you anticipate that we can hire the other 9 drivers, or when will they be going for training?
So we're working very closely with our contractor. We want to be at full service, and really they're, you know, if they can make do with 15 drivers with overtime and so forth, we want them to be a full driver complement within 3 months.
Within 3 months?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I did have another question, but now kind of left me. But thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I can't remember, was there any consideration of, oh, sorry, I'll ask real quick, of a trip or something on the evening of the fireworks or something?
You know, we're still looking at that, and as we add
Okay.
drivers, we're going to be looking to be able to provide that as well. I can tell you that we're still on track to add the free downtown shuttle at the end of May and not have to cut back any other routes in order to do that. We've actually hired a different contractor to provide that service, and if necessary, that contractor will draw drivers from other communities across the country where they also have contracts.
Okay, Mayor Gardine.
Mayor Pro Tem Gardine. Last meeting, you talked about like a central location downtown that is going to be built and renovated. Where are you at on that?
So as Mr. Tobias just noted, we are planning to give a presentation next month, a more full presentation on our downtown transit center, which is part of a larger public-private partnership. But where we are is we have entered into an agreement with the property owner as well as the City of Colorado Springs Parking Enterprise for a joint project. And we, as part of the agreement, after a year, we will have a concept plan for the project. We'll have worked out how we're going to handle the financing. We would only pay for the part that we benefit from. So that would start in I think July 1st this year. So by end of June next year, we should have a concept plan and good direction on that project.
Okay, any additional questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks, Craig.
We'll see you next month and we will have that presentation. Thanks.
Item 8B, and I don't know as if this one is Rick or not. It's City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County state funding for transportation and Tabor limits. We'll
Madam
go
Chair.
with Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, Jennifer Urban, County Engineer, and Gail's also here so that we can talk to this item. In 2021, as you may be aware, the state legislature passed Senate Bill 21260. This bill creates a ton of new fees collected by state enterprises for transportation projects. And while CDOT is getting some of that funding, a bulk of that funding was intended for local governments to be made available to be obtained by competitive grants. In discussions with our internal legal experts, because these are determined to be counted towards Tabor limits, in many cases, many of the member governments in the area will not be able to apply for these. As many of you know, for example, El Paso County is really at and over its Tabor limit, so we would be unable to apply for these types of grant applications. So in general, we met to discuss some of the options that we might have related to this. And one of the things that we looked at was a viable solution to partner with PPRTA and grant applications. And this is not something we've traditionally done in the past. In most cases, the local entity has been the grant applicant, but we have done this in the past with other projects and applications. So in general, when a member government identifies a grant project, usually we develop the application. What we're discussing and what we're proposing at this point is for PPRTA to be lead on that application, with a member government being a joint sponsor. The local government would be responsible for all the work for the project, but PPRTA would administer the fund by allocating it to the member government. This has been done in the past. PPRTA has accepted grants on behalf of a member government. An example of this is when we did our Baptist Road West project. The county had applied for an energy and mineral impact grant from DOLA. And we at that point determined when we finally received that funding that the county was at our Tabor cap. So at that point, we worked with PPRTA for that project, and PPRTA accepted those funds. But El Paso County undertook all the work to complete that project with those fundings. This arrangement and the roles of PPRTA in this example in El Paso County were clearly defined in an intergovernmental agreement between PPRTA and El Paso County. So this is just one example of how we've done it in the past. So one of the things that we're looking at is that if we are able to do this for projects that fall under the definition of maintenance, those funds would come in through PPRTA and allocated to that member government maintenance fund. And then for projects that are named capital projects, the grant money would be allocated to that project with that member government. For grants that would align with a program, and the county does not have programs at this point, but may have those in the future. The city certainly does have programs in its capital program. The grant would be allocated to that program. So the benefits of this approach include that we could apply for state funds to cover shortfalls in PPRTA projects. We would be able to realize some savings there, and so that PPRTA funding could be allocated to the other PPRTA projects. Our region could obtain the funding for our citizens that they are contributing, rather than it go back to Denver or other areas of the state. And then through the PPRTA, we could accept grants for those projects that would be otherwise unavailable. And then our funding could go towards other needs. So what we're asking today is seeking approval to give member governments and PPRTA authority to apply for those grants. And this is really at this point just a concept. We don't have any specific projects that we are looking at. We would want the ability for the board chair or the vice chair to sign those grant applications. When those grant applications are submitted, member governments would be able to report the project summary and the dollar amount to the PPRTA, CAC, and board. Part of the reason why we want the board chair or vice chair to be able to sign those applications is that many of those applications have to be done within a short time frame, and sometimes they don't fall within the meeting time that we're able to come to you and get those specifically signed off on. So but what we want to make sure is that we're transparent and we're doing everything as appropriate, and to make sure that if we do apply for those grants, that the board and the PPRTA CAC are well aware of that.
Yeah, and I'll just give you an example how we might have the first potential use of this fund. Right now, there's a call for projects that's managed through PPACG for the MMOF, which is the Multimodal and Mitigation Option Fund that was authorized underneath that Senate bill. For Pikes Peak region, that means $18.9 million in this program that could be available. And in this particular first round one, it's a higher dollar amount because they were able to bring some federal dollars in and it split pretty much 50-50. That's a pretty, and it requires a 50% match. So there's some issues there kind of managing some available general fund monies that might be going for the Tabor cap. But in this case, we'd be looking for a way to kind of manage or capture those dollars, particularly those state dollars in this way. So this gives us the option to basically, for at least for the city with our programs, to leverage RTA monies to go and capture those dollars and bring them in and not have a global impact to the overall Tabor cap within the city itself. That particular application is actually due in June. So we've been looking for a strategy to go through and do this. We wanted to float this by you, see if something would be acceptable. And then as we work collectively to kind of put the applications, it's going to be interesting though, because there's 18.9 and I know the county wants to ask for all of it and the city wants to ask for all of it. But PPRTA is going to be faced with the requester. So we almost have to duke it out beforehand who's going to ask for what if we were to take this approach. But anyway, just to kind of throw that out there in case you hear some discussion about that in the future.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Rick.
Just a clarification, in the past, the one or two times this has come up in the past, I think the board approval has been on a per grant basis. If you want this to be more global and more semi-permanent, I could bring back next month a board policy that lays this out. If you're more comfortable with that.
Yeah, that relates to my questions, unless anyone else has any. So are these just kind of falling within the Pikes Peak RTA projects, or is it things that we might have coming through the county? I'll give my favorite road. Is it like Jesse Road?
I think it depends on the entity. So for the city of Colorado Springs, and I would say in most, if not all cases, it would be paired with RTA money. I don't know if that would be the case for the county.
Oh, I think we would look at what was most advantageous at the time. It could be paired with road and bridge funds. It could be paired with other PPRTA funds. And we always see other different funding sources that fall out of the sky. So if we were able to, use it as a match, for, if we're able to do with ARPA funds or other funds that may become available, I think, our goal is to make sure that we are the best stewards of the dollars and to get as much done as we can with the dollars that are available. So we'd be looking to pair that with whatever is appropriate for that funding program.
And I will just also add that the other member governments that are in PPACG did participate in this discussion. Jennifer and I were just the scribes / presenters in this. So I wanted to make sure that Manitou, and I believe Green Mountain Falls was also included in that discussion when we had that as well. So it has some benefit for them as well.
Okay, and then, go ahead. Jen.
I just also add that, if we were able to receive the grant, then we would actually, with that grant, have to come back with a grant agreement. So there would be additional steps. It's not that, we would just be applying for these grants. And so that we would not be obligated to those grants until we came back with those agreements. And that's similar to, what we do within the county, just so that you're aware.
Okay, now I have a question, I guess, go ahead. Mayor Pro Tem.
Tim Gardine Callahan, Ben's on part of PPRTA. Can we participate in this process also?
So Andy, they're not in the MPO, is that correct?
You might have to apply through the Central Front Range TPR Transportation Planning Region. That's going to be coordinated by CDOT. And I'll get you that info offline because this portion of the MMOF dollars probably just flowed to the MPO of PPACG, which stops just a little bit north of Falcon.
I would add that, yes, that is correct. There is funding through the Central Front Range TPR that you would be eligible for.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Okay, final question. I would be interested in seeing this as a board policy or if we have to do an intergovernmental agreement, which of those would we have to do and is there other interest? Councilmember Williams.
I do think, given the structures that are there, it does make sense to look at doing a broader policy for the future. And perhaps we address in that policy what happens when multiple entities want to go after the same pot of money, because I think right now that the county and city have a pretty good working relationship together, but over the 30 years I've lived here, that's not always been the case. And so I want to make sure that we have a policy that addresses that. And I turn to our council to say how long it will take you to do this magic.
Rick and I will work together on some proposed policy. I mean, I think an intergovernmental agreement would probably be on a grant by grant, case by case basis rather than upfront. So I think the policy, I think that's as much political as it is legal. So happy to help put something together, but I think all the things that I've mentioned should be considered in that policy. One other consideration that I would ask staff from the member governments and PPACG staff to consider and come back with is whether or not we need to amend the establishing IGA. The establishing IGA refers to the categories of capital and operations and maintenance and transit as percentages of total revenue, not limited to sales tax. Grant money of this nature would be revenue for Tabor purposes. So if the magnitude of these grants moves the needle enough, it could skew the percentages. As I say often, I'm a lawyer and I was told there's no math. So somebody should apply some math to this hypothetical I've come up with, but it is possible, depending on the magnitude of these grants, that it could skew that math. From a ballot question standpoint, I'm just looking at your 2004 ballot question. The percentages there are tied to the sales tax number. And then just to give the board comfort, since we're talking about Tabor limits, the end of that ballot question does refer to revenue from the tax and other revenues of PPRTA being collected and spent each year without limitations of Tabor. So it is both the sales tax revenue and any other revenue that have been detabored by your 2004 ballot question.
And I would note that the fact that language is there, that there would be other revenues, contemplates something other than the sales tax. I'm not sure exactly what was in the mind of everyone at the time it was drafted, and I certainly wouldn't purport to believe that all several 100,000 people who voted on it knew exactly what it meant, but it's clear that there was at least clear language in the ballot that there would be some potential for other forms of revenue.
Would be, could be, yes. Other revenue was definitely contemplated. So I'm comfortable. This is, we don't have a Tabor issue like the city and the county have in being a grant applicant. State grant money like this would be part of revenue. There's some federal grant money that actually isn't part of revenue, but we're in the weeds at this point. But yeah, from a mathematical exercise, I would ask, and it's not something we have to do right this second, but since we'll be amending the IGA again in connection with PPRTA 3, if this would move the percentages on the needle on the percentages, we should account for that in the next amendment.
So just to interject, in the past, the only state funding that we received was a capital project, which didn't affect our maintenance dollars percentages that are specified. So right now we're in good standing with that. But in the future, if any of these state funding projects are maintenance, it would impact, as it's written now, those member governments' allocation from the RTA sales tax. So it kind of reduced their sales tax allocation to the amount that they received through a state funded project to maintenance, but that's not the case with capital.
Right. Yeah, so two factors. I think one is the moving the needle on how net revenue gets split. And then what you're mentioning, Bev, is the allocation under the maintenance dollars.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So we're approving this, yes, in concept, we're approving. So what we're doing is we're seeking approval to give member governments and Pikes Peak RTA the authority to apply for grants and for the board chair or vice chair to sign the grant application. And then when grants are submitted, the member governments will report the project summary and dollar amount to the PERTA, CAC, and board. Is that as basic as we want the language this time?
Yes,
Okay, is that a motion?
I make a motion. Any help?
Okay. Councilmember Helms moves that. Is there a second? Mayor Graham seconds that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's see how well this works. Thank you for the idea. 8C, the City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report. Jennifer? Nope. Gail, sorry, reading ahead.
Gail Servant, City of Colorado Springs. The change order log and the real estate log were provided in your packets. If you have questions, I am available.
Okay, that is an information item. And then El Paso County's change order
Jennifer
report.
Irvin, County Engineer. Similarly, our information is in your packets. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions on these two items? Okay, seeing none, did we know if item 9A is our legislative report from Dan Jablan? Do we know if he was going to be available?
He is in a phone booth on the second floor of the Capitol.
Oh, wonderful. It's good to hear from you, Dan.
Hey, everybody.
I didn't know we had phone booths anymore.
There's no phones in here, but there is a booth at least.
Yeah.
I do. As everyone knows, there's 28 days left in the session. So, and they probably have over 2/3 of the work left to do. So things are moving pretty quickly here. On our bill, I think the number is 1062. We have the most interest in. There's three likely outcomes for this piece of legislation. One, it won't even be brought up in committee again because it's had its one hearing. Two, it will be brought up in committee and killed. And the third, and least likely of all, it'll be brought up in committee. They will put our amendment on it finally correctly and be passed out and moved to the floor. But I don't see that happening. Really, I mean, if it moves out, it will move out with our amendment word for word. I've been given assurance over and over again by the minority leader and his public policy team in the minority office. So that's not my biggest concern at all. But I wouldn't be surprised with 28 days left. One of two things will happen. It won't get heard again and voted on in committee, or it will, and it will just die there. But those are our likely outcomes for that particular piece of legislation. But if it does pass the House, again, I've been given assurances by the minority leader over and over again that it will be word for word what we need to make sure we're taken care of. So I feel like we're in a really good spot on that, and we do have time on our side as well.
Okay, and that bill is the sales tax.
Yes.
Removing sales tax from restaurant purchases. So.
Yep.
Okay, anything else?
That's the biggest of our issues and the one we're really tracking down here.
Yes, and Dan, Jennifer Ivy has a statement or comment.
Hi, Dan.
Okay.
I
Hi,
was-
Jennifer.
I was just going to chime in that we did, there was an amendment passed for 1062, which proposed to amend the RTA law, which is not our preferred method. Just so everyone knows, I did work with the drafters on revised language, and that's what Dan's referring to, which would replace the existing amended language if this bill gets any breath, which it sounds like it's probably not going to, but it's in place just in case anyone's concerned. I did also ask Dan just to keep on his radar Senate Bill 22-130. This is a state entity authority for public-private partnerships. This is one of these bills that just has the potential to sweep in a whole bunch of different projects and entities. At one point, it was including in its definition of public projects, such things as roadways, bridges, intermodal systems, and public transit systems. At last revision, it pulled that out, but just add some additional hoops if you're going to enter into an agreement with the state for a public-private partnership. Under its terms, private would lump in various local governments, which could be argued to include the RTA, city, or counties, at least with the last language I saw. So we just want to keep on our radar, just so, because as you all know, once things get introduced in the legislature, that doesn't mean that they're going to look the same when they leave the legislature. So just FYI.
More likely than not.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board members? No further questions. Thank you, Dan, for joining us.
No worries. I'm gonna put my cape back on and go in committee.
Have fun.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Item 9B, revision to the CAC bylaws. Rick, did you just want to tell us about this one more time?
Yes, please. This is just formalizing the board's action of last month, which revises the composition of the PPRTA CAC membership. And you remember that's 2 CAC members for Manitou Springs, 1 for Rama, 1 for Green Mountain Falls, 1 for Calhan, and increasing the at-large regular seats from 5 to 6 for a total voting membership of 17 plus the 4 alternates is 21. So this is just the formal bylaws document that reflects the board action of last month.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on this item? All right, there being no questions, I'll take a motion to approve the revision to the CAC bylaws.
Lohinos move.
Okay, so, all right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gonzalez, a second by Councilmember Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Item 9C and 9, then we'll go right into 9D. So the staff field review report, and then tell us about the appointment of CAC members.
The staff field review report is just the results of my quarterly drive around to confirm what the member governments have said they have completed in the prior quarter. Info, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Item 9D, the appointment of CAC members.
So now that the board has approved the formal reorganization of the CAC in the bylaws in the prior item just a second ago, there are 2 CAC members who are temporarily not CAC members. They are the second CAC member from Green Mountain Falls and the second CAC member from Rama. And those are from Green Mountain Falls, that's Ann Esch, and from Rama, that's Joan Lucia Treese. So instead of them being out of a job for 1 month at the May 4 CAC meeting, I'm recommending that the board waive board policy temporarily for 1 item, waive board policy 23, which requires the board to have a subcommittee recommendation to the board on at-large and at-large alternate members, and simply appoint Joan Lucia Treese and Ann Esch to be at-large regular members of the CAC. And there are 3 vacancies in that category, the at-large regular. So this would fill 2 of those 3 vacant seats.
This Wayne, so moved.
Carrie Geithner, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Ann Esch and Joan Lucia Treese to these vacancies. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is very good. Thank you. We do have item number 10, an executive session. Do you need to read something, Jennifer? Do you want me to read that?
Well, if you want to read it as a motion, go ahead.
Okay, item number 10 is an executive session pursuant to sections 24-6-402, paragraph 4, paragraph B, and or 24-6-402-4E CRS for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions and or determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators regarding matters related to the PRTA's anticipated participation in the November 8th, 2022 election and or a proposed reimbursement agreement if necessary.
And I would just specify that all those and ors are really ands, and it is necessary. I'm suggesting that it is necessary today.
Yes, so it is necessary, and we do have 2 items for that. Do we have a motion
Ms. Wayne, so moved.
and a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we want to take a short 5-minute break to have a group picture and a short restroom break, and then we'll start our executive session at 2:40.
For those on Zoom, I'm going to move you into a waiting room. You'll be let back in when the executive session is over.
And I would just specify while the recording is still on that it is 2:33 on April 13th, 2022. We are convening into an executive session for the purposes of receiving legal advice. As such, no further recording of the session must be made.
Okay, you want to do the picture over here or over? Okay, we made a motion to come back by by City Councilman Williams and Councilman Helms. And we're back in regular session after having discussed items in executive session, and direction was received by our attorney. So let us go on to the next item, which is item number 11, 2022 capital maintenance and public transportation contracts continued, El Paso County.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, Jennifer Irvin, County Engineer. Today, we have 2 items for your consideration today. The first is a reimbursement agreement and purchase order with Monument Academy Corporation for the Highway 105 project in the amount of $1.55 million. This is in relationship to mitigate incurable damages to the Monument Academy property that are resulting as a result of the county's acquisition of real property for the Monument Academy project and their restriction from access from Highway 105 to the Monument Academy property. The second item is for contract and purchase order with TRS Corporation in the amount of approximately $46,000. This is to add additional professional services into the design contract. When we did the initial design contract, we were working to determine how many properties we were impacting. And so in the initial contract, we did not include property acquisition services. And so this is an amount and contract with TRS Corporation, who does property acquisition, to complete that property acquisition for that project. Happy to answer any questions on both of those items.
Okay, are there any questions on either the first item or the second?
Ms. Wayne, move approval.
Okay, we have a motion by Council Member Wayne Williams and Mayor John Graham. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Go ahead, Rick.
Are we ready for 12A?
We are ready for 12A, the timetable for the Pikes Peak RTA 3 ballot measure.
So hoping that I can discuss this and not start the Fair Campaign Practices Act. The board has requested a specific timetable, and Jennifer Ivy, the board's attorney, has provided that, and that's the attachment. I've summarized some of the early steps. The first of which would be the May cycle for the CAC and the board would be reviewing the capital project list, and I've sent out several emails to member government staffs indicating that I'll need that by April 27, which is just 2 weeks from now. Not that they can't supplement or revise their capital lists in June or July, but at least get the first draft in the May CAC and board cycle of meetings. And then later there's the actions with the clerk and recorder's office and sending in our first half of the payment of our estimated ballot cost that the clerk and recorder will require via an IGA, which will come in later months. So just requesting a board approval of the timetable.
And I would just note that it's the timetables doesn't include every single election deadline. I didn't want to make your packet 300 pages long. Then most of those are taken care of by the county, but this sort of highlights the high level, the items that we need to have input on.
Okay, are there any questions? Councilmember Williams.
Not a question, but this is more an election geeky thing, which is the county is not the responsible party for appointing the canvas board members. Because this is a general election, those are appointed by the two respective parties. So
At least in 2012, it was in the IGA that they were doing it, but I will write down to double check.
okay,
I don't have this year's IGA, obviously.
they're providing them, but it's actually the parties that appoint them.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying, because it's a general election. I understand. I
Yeah.
understand your point.
Yeah, and it's so it's the county's not appointing them. It's
And
in an
yes.
area in which election integrity is a significant issue. It's important to note that it's the respective parties who appoint the canvas board.
Now I
county-
understand the
The
nuance.
county doesn't just appoint their own.
Yes, I will edit this accordingly. But no, I understand what you're saying now.
Okay, can we have a motion then to approve the timetable for the PERTA 3 ballot measure?
With that change, I move approval.
Second.
This way.
Councilmember Williams, you need to give Carrie a chance. Okay, the motion by Mr. Williams, the second by Commissioner Geithner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That one passes. And now we'll talk about the Pikes Peak RTA 2022 annual report. Rick?
In very similar, almost identical fashion as we've been doing since 2006. Each year, we have an annual report to the citizens. We print a certain number of hard copies. I take those around to governmental buildings, libraries, chambers of commerce, EDC, et cetera. And it goes on the website, PPRTA website, and we print 9 newspaper ads directing the public to our website to see it. So this was generated and compiled with the information supplied to us from the member government staffs, the narrative and the pictures, and the maps are updated by the GIS wizards here in the PPACG building. So it's ready. The CAC did not have any changes. The one change obviously is going to be the picture that of the board and the group picture that was taken today, and we'll add that to page 4, the board's page. With that one change, I'm recommending, and the CAC's recommending, that the board approve this for printing and distribution.
Any questions? A motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion is made by Commissioner Gonzalez. Commissioner Geithner would, Mayor Pro Tem Gardine is going to second this one.
I second this one.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
This isn't a question, this is just a comment. So
Jeez.
3 years ago, when I think we need to look specifically at pages 8 and 9. Actually, not so much 8 and 9, but pages 12, 13, 14. When I joined the board 3 years ago, our annual report had a whole bunch of things that had not been started. This is a very different looking map. And I want to thank the city, county, towns, city. That's the case, that's because I'm nodding over to John here. But for getting the push to get these projects so they now are underway. And I think this is such a critical thing to our voters. And I know that I've sometimes been slightly obnoxious in my push that we get these things moved along. And so having done that, it's only appropriate that I say thank you for doing that. And thank you for making this report look a lot better. I appreciate it.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 13, PERTA member announcements. I guess I need to go around the room real quick. Rick, do you have to say anything? I know we're scheduling a Spring Creek Bridge opening, and I don't know what time period you're looking at for that.
Madam Chair, Gail Student, City of Colorado Springs. I actually have a couple that announcements. That is one of them. We were targeting May 16th or 17th, but the date and time is to be finalized, and you will see some correspondence on that. And we are asking for Councilor Avila and yourself to be the speakers for that. Shortly after that, the Platte Avenue Bridge over Sand Creek, we intend to have a grand opening for that as well. And you'll hear some more information about that. And the other item I wanted to mention is the City of Colorado Springs is going to be coming back next month and asking for a letter of support for a grant application that we're going to be putting together. It's kind of the next step of that Christie grant we put together for the Nevada Tejon bridges, the railroad bridges. And so we'll be asking for RTA support on that. We're working through a lot of details internally with the city and also with both railroads, and figuring out how we come up with the local match with the ask and things like that. So we will likely have some kind of discussion, not just with the letter of support, but basically even a strategy on the local funding component of that next month.
Okay, any other member announcements? Go ahead, Councilmember Williams.
Sorry, I just had a question. So we had a CAC report at the very beginning about the Black Forest widening project. Is there a formal groundbreaking for that project? Or what, has it already taken place?
There is not a formal groundbreaking of the project. We really use that pre-construction meeting, these public open houses to really start getting the word out for that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you
I
very
was just going to
much.
thank everyone for their patience. I know we weren't winning any efficiency records today with the meeting time. So
Well, we had several jokes on what happens if you put two attorneys together to change a light bulb, but they probably never agree on the type of light bulb. Okay, so with all of that, there being no further PERTA member announcements, we are going to adjourn.
Thank you.